Talking Heads were an American rock band formed in 1975 in New York City and active until 1991. The band comprised David Byrne, Chris Frantz, Tina Weymouth and Jerry Harrison. Other musicians also regularly made appearances in concert and on the group's albums. The new wave style of Talking Heads combined elements of punk rock, art rock, avant-garde, pop, funk, world music, and Americana. Frontman and songwriter David Byrne contributed whimsical, esoteric lyrics to the band's songs, and emphasized their showmanship through various multimedia projects and performances. Critic Stephen Thomas Erlewine described Talking Heads as being one of the most critically acclaimed bands of the 80s, while managing to earn several pop hits. In 2002, the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 4 of the band's albums appeared on Rolling Stone magazine's 2003 list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, and the Channel 4 100 Greatest Albums poll listed one album at number 76. In the 2011 update of Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Artists of All Time, the band was ranked at No. 100. History, 1974–1977, first years. David Byrne, Chris Frantz and Tina Weymouth were alumni of the Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, Rhode Island. Byrne and Frantz formed a band called the Artistics in 1974. Weymouth was Frantz's girlfriend and often provided transportation for the band. The Artistics dissolved within a year, and the three moved to New York, eventually sharing a communal loft. Unable to find a bass player in New York City, Frantz encouraged Weymouth to learn to play bass by listening to Suzi Quatro albums. They played their first gig as Talking Heads opening for the Ramones at CBGB on June 20, 1975. In a later interview, Weymouth recalled how the group chose the name Talking Heads. A friend had found the name in the TV guide, which explained the term used by TV studios to describe a head-and-shoulder shot of a person talking as all content, no action. It fit. Later in 1975, the trio recorded a series of demos for CBS, but the band was not signed to the label. They quickly drew a following and were signed to Sire Records in 1977. The group released their first single, Love a Building on Fire, in February that year. In March 1977, they added Jerry Harrison, formerly of Jonathan Richman's band The Modern Lovers. Their first album, Talking Heads, 77, which did not contain the earlier single, was released soon afterwards. The album received considerable acclaim and spawned what became the group's first charted single, Psycho Killer. The song was released to the radio just months after the serial killer known as the Son of Sam was terrorizing New York City, prompting many to assume of some eerie connection. However, it was later revealed that Byrne had written the song nearly 4 years prior. 1978–1982, Building a Reputation. 1978's More Songs About Buildings and Food brought about the band's long-term collaboration with producer Brian Eno, who had previously worked with Roxy Music, David Bowie, John Cale and Robert Fripp. The title of Eno's 1977 song King's Lead Hat is an anagram of the band's name. Eno's unusual style meshed well with the group's artistic sensibilities, and they began to explore an increasingly diverse range of musical directions, from post-punk to new wave to psychedelic funk. This recording also established the band's long-term recording studio relationship with the famous Compass Point Studios in Nassau, Bahamas. More songs. Cover of Al Green's Take Me to the River broke Talking Heads into general public consciousness, and gave the band their first Billboard Top 30 hit. The Eno Talking Heads experimentation continued with 1979's Fear of Music, which flirted with the darker stylings of post-punk rock, mixed with white funkadelic and subliminal references to the geopolitical instability of the late 1970s. Music journalist Simon Reynolds cited Fear of Music as representing the Eno Talking Heads collaboration at its most mutually fruitful and equitable. The single Life During Wartime produced the catchphrase, "This ain't no party, this ain't no disco." The song refers to the Mud Club and CBGB, two popular New York nightclubs of the time. 1980s Remain in Light, heavily influenced by the Afrobeat of Nigerian band leader Fela Kuti, to whose music Eno had introduced the band, explored West African polyrhythms, weaving these together with Arabic music from North Africa, disco funk, and found voices. These combinations foreshadowed Byrne's later interest in world music. In order to perform these more complex arrangements, the band toured with an expanded group that included Adrian Belew and Bernie Worrell, among others, first at the Heatwave Festival in August, and later in their concert film Stop Making Sense. During this period, Tina Weymouth and Chris Frantz also formed a commercially successful splinter group, Tom Tom Club, influenced by the foundational elements of hip-hop, and Harrison released his first solo album, The Red and the Black. Likewise, Byrne in collaboration with Eno released My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, which incorporated world music, found sounds, and included a number of other prominent international and post-punk musicians. All were released by Sire. The Remain in Light album's lead single, Once in a Lifetime, became a top 20 hit in the UK but initially failed to make an impression upon its release in the band's own country. But it grew into a popular standard over the next few years on the strength of its music video, which was named one of Time magazine's all-time best music videos. After releasing 4 albums in barely 4 years, the group went into hiatus and nearly 3 years passed before their next release, although Frantz and Weymouth continued to record with the Tom Tom Club. In the meantime, Talking Heads released a live album, the name of this band is Talking Heads, toured the United States and Europe as an 8-piece group, and parted ways with Eno, who went on to produce albums with U2. 1983–1991, height of commercial success and breakup. 1983 saw the release of Speaking in Tongues, a commercial breakthrough that produced the band's only American top 10 hit, Burning Down the House. Once again, a striking video was inescapable owing to its heavy rotation on MTV. The following tour was documented in Jonathan Demme's Stop Making Sense, which generated another live album of the same name. The tour in support of Speaking in Tongues was their last. 3 more albums followed, 1985's Little Creatures, 1986's True Stories, and 1988's Naked. Little Creatures offered a much more American pop rock sound as opposed to previous efforts. Similar in genre, True Stories hatched one of the group's most successful hits, Wild Wild Life, and the accordion-driven track Radiohead, which became the E-Timon of the band of the same name. Meanwhile Naked, which explored politics, sex and death, showed heavy African influence with polyrhythmic styles like those seen on Remain in Light. During that time the group was falling increasingly under David Byrne's control, and after Naked the band went on hiatus. It took until December 1991 for an official announcement to be made that Talking Heads had broken up. Their final release was Sax and Violins, an original song that had appeared earlier that year on the soundtrack to Wim Wenders' Until the End of the World. During this breakup period, Byrne continued his solo career, releasing Re Momo in 1989 and The Forest in 1991. This period also saw a revived flourish from both Tom Tom Club and Harrison, who toured together in the summer of 1990. 1992 2002, post-breakup and final reunion. Despite David Byrne's lack of interest in another album, Tina Weymouth, Chris Frantz, and Jerry Harrison reunited for a one-off album called No Talking, Just Head under the name The Heads in 1996. The album featured a number of vocalists including Debbie Harry of Blondie, Jeanette Napolitano of Concrete Blonde, Andy Partridge of XTC, Gordon Gano of Violent Femmes, Michael Hutchence of INXS, Ed Kowalczyk of Live, Shawn Ryder of Happy Mondays, Richard Hell, and Maria McKee. The album was accompanied by a tour which featured Jeanette Napolitano as the vocalist. Byrne took legal action against the rest of the band to prevent them using the name Talking Heads, something he saw as a pretty obvious attempt to cash in on the Talking Heads name. They opted to record and tour as The Heads. Likewise, Byrne continues his solo career. Meanwhile, Harrison became a record producer of some note. His raw copyright Suma copyright includes The Violent Femme, The Blind Leading the Naked, The Fine Young Cannibals, The Raw and the Cooked, General Public's Rub It Better, Crash Test Dummies, God Shuffled His Feet, Liv's Mental Jewelry, Throwing Copper and A Distance to Hear, No Doubt's song New from Return of Saturn, and in 2010, work by the Black and White Years and Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Frantz and Weymouth, who were married in 1977, had been recording on the side as Tom Tom Club since 1981. Tom Tom Club's self-titled debut album sold almost as well as Talking Heads themselves, leading to the band appearing in Stop Making Sense. They achieved several pop-rap hits during the dance club cultural boom era of the early 1980s, particularly in the UK, where they still enjoy a strong fan following today. Their best-known single, Genius of Love, has been sampled numerous times, notably on old-school hip-hop classic It's Nasty by Grandmaster Flash and on Mariah Carey's 1995 hit Fantasy. They also have produced several artists, including Happy Mondays and Ziggy Marley. The Tom Tom Club continue to record and tour intermittently, although commercial releases have become sporadic since 1991. The band played live during Wartime, Psycho Killer, and Burning Down the House together on March 18, 2002, at the ceremony of their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. However, reuniting for a concert tour is unlikely. David Byrne states, "We did have a lot of bad blood go down. That's one reason, and another is that musically we're just miles apart." Weymouth, however, has been critical of Byrne, describing him as a man incapable of returning friendship, and saying that he doesn't love her, Frantz, and Harrison. Influence: one of the most celebrated bands of the post-punk generation, Talking Heads' art-pop idiosyncrasies have had a long-lasting impact. Along with other early 1980s anti-corporate and experimental groups such as the Ramones and Blondie, they helped define the new wave genre in the United States. Meanwhile, the more worldly popularities like 1980s Remain in Light helped bring African rock to the Western world. Talking Heads have been cited as a primary influence by many artists, including R.E.M., Vampire Weekend, Primus, Bell X1 and Radiohead, who took their name from the Talking Heads song Radiohead from the 1986 album True Stories. The Italian filmmaker and director Paolo Sorrentino, in receiving the Oscar for his film La Grande Bellezza in 2014, thanked Talking Heads among others as his sources of inspiration. What the Songs Look Like. What the Songs Look Like, Contemporary Artists Interpret Talking Heads Songs is a visual art book published in 1987 by Harper & Row. It comprises full-page artworks by over 50 contemporary artists, each matched to a specific Talking Heads song. Artists featured in the collection include David Byrne, Keith Haring, Sue Coe, and Robert Rauschenberg. Discography: Talking Heads, 77, More Songs About Buildings and Food, Fear of Music, Remain in Light, Speaking in Tongues, Little Creatures, True Stories, Naked, References. Further reading: David Bowman, This Must Be the Place, The Adventures of Talking Heads in the 20th Century. ISBN 0-380-97846-6. David Byrne, How Music Works. ISBN 1-936365-53-7. David Gans, Talking Heads. ISBN 0-380-89954-X. Krista Rees, The name of this book is Talking Heads. ISBN 0-86276-057-7. Talking Heads and Frank Olinsky, What the Songs Look Like, Contemporary Artists Interpret Talking Heads Songs. ISBN 0-06-096205-4. External links: Official website, Official Facebook page.